Welcome in, everyone, and thank you for listening to the 95th ever episode of the Missouri Sports Podcast, brought to you by 106 Apparel and recording from the Revel Advertising Studio in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. I'm one of your hosts, Cameron Albert, alongside my good friend and fellow Mizzou fan, Kyle DeVries. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Cameron, I'm doing great today. Probably not as great as Coach Eli Drinkwitz today, but I'm still great. How about you?
Not many people could say that they're doing as well as Eli Drinkwitz. Currently, I'm doing pretty well. I mean, it goes without saying, the news we've been receiving in football recruiting, it's got me over the moon, to be honest with you. So that's
a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. That's a nice saying. I think we are going to pretty much dedicate this episode to the success on the football recruiting trail. So we will certainly get to that in a few minutes.
Yeah, pretty much all the news from the past week of note has been football commits. There's a few other things we want to talk about first. But before we even do that, I want to remind everyone, go check us out on YouTube. Please subscribe, leave us a comment, leave us a like, download our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tell your friends about us. Check us out on Twitter. Leave us a review. All that stuff. Anything that I missed there?
I think you covered it pretty well. Hopefully everyone's really just writing all that stuff down. Like, okay, I got to do all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. That's your to-do list.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about some news. And we'll start it off with basketball, if you don't mind. We'll talk about 24/7 Sports' updated 2021 basketball rankings. Main thing that of note there is our guy, Anton Brookshire, did not make the jump like he did in the ESPN rankings, not the jump that we were expecting in the 24/7 Sports composite. So that's a little disappointing. Maybe I had a little bit too high of expectations after those ESPN rankings were announced, but still disappointing nonetheless.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised to see him not in the top 150. I think I was a little bit surprised to see him at 90th in the ESPN rankings when they came out a few weeks ago. But now that that he's there and that's established, I definitely expected to see him in pretty much all of the other services top 150s. But
yeah.
There's a lot of time. Obviously, we're in weird conditions right now. The season has not been played yet. There's been no off-season stuff really happening besides him making a commitment. So it's not super shocking, I guess, when you really think about it.
Yeah, I think the fact that he was so high in the ESPN rankings kind of just was maybe a little bit of confirmation bias, where I wanted him to start heading up those rankings. And when he came out in the top 100 in ESPN, it just affirmed what I already wanted to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe this... not seeing that in 24/7 Sports is maybe just a little bit of a reality check that he's not just going to skyrocket up the rankings quite like I would have hoped.
He might eventually.
I still believe that.
Yeah.
I still believe that.
Jordan Nesbitt sneaking in at 135. There was a guy that Missouri's recruiting 6'7" forward. His name escapes me right now because I just remembered it, but he made a massive jump from like unranked to like 59 or something. Did you have it pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Can you look in? I think it's 59.
John Butler.
That's not 59. Okay, can you look at the other, like a couple, but maybe before that? I think it was 50 something.
Let me see if a name rings a bell.
Any names ring a bell?
Quincy Allen.
Nope.
None of these names are ringing a bell.
Okay. Well, there was a guy that Missouri had offered recently that we talked about a few episodes ago. He made a massive jump. A lot of teams on him. So
Alex Fudge.
That's not it, but I do like that name. I will figure that out later at some point, probably, maybe.
Probably not, but that's fine. Some other names I just wanted to note in these 2021 rankings. Chet Holmgren staying solid at number 2 with the Mizzou offer. Mizzou offer out to Patrick Baldwin, number 3. So Missouri making their presence known in the top 5. On a serious note, Springfield's own Aminu Muhammad checking in at 11th. So right around where he's always been, on that, right around the top 10. A few Mizzou offers. The number 1 player in the state of California, we talked about him recently, getting a Mizzou offer.
Speaking of Aminu Muhammad,
yeah,
I saw him at Walmart a few days ago. He's very tall, and we had a little bit of a awkward moment where we were kind of like trying to walk into the same space, like the same lane. And
were you following the arrows on the ground?
I was paying very close attention to that. So, but that was really all our interaction was. But he exists.
Wow.
Here in Springfield.
Outside, off the basketball court, he's a real person.
It's true.
It's like when you see your teacher at Walmart and you're like, oh, you're supposed to be at school.
I ended up finding the name I was looking for also, by the way.
Yeah, let's hear it.
James Graham at number 57.
Huh.
I believe he went from unranked to 57th. So that was a massive jump for him. But yeah, Mizzou on a lot of those guys in the top 150. How realistic of a shot we'll see.
Yeah, I was looking at the composite, not just the top 24/7.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I see that now. I wanted to see Tamar Bates actually dropped 14 spots, which is a pretty big drop. He's now ranked 121st. Sorry, 120th. And then Jordan Nesbitt up 39 spots to that 135. I love those. I love recruiting rankings. I don't know why. I could look at them all day. One of my favorite things to do is go through all three the seniors, the juniors, and the sophomores heading into the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions and doing research on the players that are going to be at the tournament. I did that before we even started going. I would make my list of players to watch and where they were going to go to school and stuff. SEC basketball news. Former Florida guard Andrew Nembhard is headed to Gonzaga.
He's going to be very good at Gonzaga. We were just talking about this a few minutes ago, actually. Gonzaga they just know how to get the most out of their players, man. It's something about their coaching, their offensive scheme, something about it. They're able to take good players and just get incredible results out of them. They're in the national spotlight. It seems like every year.
They're always at the top of the offensive efficiency rankings.
Yeah, so just an intelligent guard just is going to, I'm sure, flourish there for sure.
Yeah, of course. Anytime we mention Andrew Nembhard, I have to mention the fact that I pitched him to come play at Missouri when he was in the Bass Pro Tournament of Champions. I told him that he would look really good in black and gold.
Which was true.
Yep. And he said that he was interested and that he was going to take a visit.
What year would that have been?
2015.
So Kim Anderson.
Yeah.
Well, you really shot your shot.
He never visited. I don't know if you're aware of that. So yeah, but we
appreciate it.
Yeah, and then he came to the SEC. I didn't love that, but I've always kind of kept tabs on him since he was a Mizzou recruit, and I got to pitch him on coming to Columbia.
Did you hear about Blake Hinson? Where he's going?
No.
Iowa State.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I really thought Missouri might have a shot. I thought they really might. I don't know if they kicked the tires on that or not, but they probably should have.
Yeah, I would hope.
I was really like, I don't know. I was getting all excited. I'm like, okay, we got an open scholarship. Like right around the same time he announced he's transferring, so I thought there might have been something funky going on maybe, but there was not.
Anything else basketball related that you can think of?
I think so.
Because we're about to talk about football for a while.
Oh, a while. That's how we like it.
Two things that aren't really a part of this huge recruiting boom. Travion Ford is enrolling in the spring, according to his Twitter account. So that's really cool.
That's going to be big. I always think that it's such a big advantage for freshmen to come in and enroll in the spring semester, because it just gives them, a whole nother 4 or 5 months in the program, in the weight room, just getting to know the playbook and the players and all that stuff. There's just an immense amount of advantages for players that come in early like that. and you get to play in the spring game.
That's what I was going to
And there's so many good things about doing that, and I always feel like those players, just kind of have a leg up on the freshmen who are just arriving, this time of the year. So, and that's such a massive position of need going forward. So Traven Ford's giving himself every opportunity in the world to start, or maybe not start, but play from day one.
Yeah, and it I don't know, it just makes me feel better every single time when he tweets something about Mizzou. I mean, as far as being a flight risk at this point, I would say those chances are really low. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't feel like there's much of an issue at all right now.
Mm-hmm. I saw a picture of him today standing next to Coach Drinkwitz on his recruiting visit, and mm-hmm. he's just massive.
Yeah. For your average, very highly ranked recruit that's picked Missouri early-ish in the process, I'm always just second guessing it and thinking, super, legendary programs and coaches are going to swoop in and steal this guy from us. Mm-hmm. And it really seems like this one's going to hold up.
Yeah, it's kind of those guys that are late bloomers that I think that you worry about that a little bit. Maybe they kind of blow up after they commit to Missouri. That's when I think you mm-hmm. really get worried, because with Traven Ford, those programs were there whenever he committed. Those programs have always been there from the get-go of his recruitment, and he just kind of chose Missouri from the start. And I think you definitely always worry about those high-profile guys. You can't change their mind or deciding they want to chase the bigger school or whatever. But I really don't have that fear with Traven at all.
No. This was actually last week's news, I think, but I think we just kind of missed it, that Shamar Pearl is transferring to Missouri, I guess. It's always I don't know, it's weird in football when a JUCO player commits, because in football it seems like it's treated like a high school commit, mm-hmm. more so than in basketball, mm-hmm. when the headlines would be, Missouri gets a transfer from whatever, Ranger College guard Jordan Geist transfers to Missouri, whereas this is Missouri gets a commitment from Shamar Pearl. Mm-hmm. So it always kind of throws me off, but that's really exciting. He picked Missouri out of high school, had to go to the JUCO route. I'm always happy to see those guys come back around and end up in Columbia regardless.
You don't really see that happen very often, honestly. At least my perception of it. It seems like the guys that have to go the JUCO route, either they commit to somewhere else in 2 years, or you just don't really hear from them again.
There's a different head coach.
Yeah. I think Deron Davis is a guy that comes to mind of, kind of a promising in-state player who committed to Missouri. I think he was the first commit in one of our classes a few years ago. I don't think he ended up qualifying, and I just never heard anything about him ever again. And, I don't know if he ended up playing somewhere else, but, sometimes you don't hear from guys. Sometimes they come back around, and luckily this one did. And I feel like this was, Shamar Pearl was fairly sought after. He was number one ranked JUCO defensive end in the composite rankings right now. So even more so, it's just crazy that he came around, committed to Missouri again, and he's very sought after and very highly ranked. So, like you said, I think this was something that happened like Friday morning or something right after we published last week's episode mm-hmm. or something. Mm-hmm. But I watched some of his film, and he's exciting. He's 6'6", 240. One of the most impressive things about him, I think, is just the length of his arms. Like, he just is so long, and looks like he can just get right around, those offensive tackles. And
I could see him batting down some passes.
Yeah. So, honestly, his ranking came in even higher than I thought it might after watching his film. Impressive film, but that is very impressive ranking to be the number one composite defensive end in JUCO.
Sheldon Richardson comes to mind as a guy who did that and then was incredibly successful at Missouri.
Yeah, he
committed out of high school and was obviously a huge get for Missouri at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, he was very very talented. Still in the NFL, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Everything worked out just fine there for Missouri. You ready to just jump into this list of commits?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. We can kind of try and go in order of in which they happen. Maybe I know that's kind of how I wrote it down.
That sounds fine to me.
So Shamar Pearl, the first guy to jump on board this week. like I mentioned earlier, I was like, oh man, we're gonna have to talk about Shamar Pearl like a week after he commits or whatever. But they just didn't stop the rest of the week. I think we had 6 commits if you include the 2 guys who are transferring from other schools. But just a couple more notes on Pearl. Assuming he plays this season, if it's not canceled to COVID stuff, he's going to have 2 years of eligibility at Mizzou. And for whatever reason, if JUCO is canceled, then he'll have 3 years of eligibility at Mizzou. His final 3 were Missouri, Texas Tech, and South Carolina. So pretty big get there, obviously. Next guy that committed the next day after that was Zachary Lovett. And he is a 6'2", 230-pound linebacker from Florida. And so, watching his film, he looks SEC ready already, maybe more so than any of these guys. He's just huge. He's very fast for his size. And it's pretty likely that he will end up just moving to defensive end because of his size, and he's got some room to grow. A lot of people think so. He had some offers, pretty big offers. He was offered by Miami, and he lives in Florida. So to pull a kid out of Florida who was offered by Miami is a pretty big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing here also West Virginia, Louisville, Georgia Tech.
Yeah, he would just chase people down in open field like skill players, running backs, quarterbacks who are running. He would just come out of nowhere and take the long angle across the field and run them down. So he's a big guy with a lot of speed.
We got to start just like stacking up commitments on the defensive line, because obviously that was probably the area of most need for the new coaching staff to really get their head around, because there just wasn't a whole lot coming in, and what existed had not been spectacular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I think I love about this class so far, and what I love about the coaching staff especially, is that they've just really addressed some of those needs on the current roster with this recruiting class. And sometimes I think that if you're addressing immediate needs with a recruiting class, you might be in a little bit of trouble for a year or two, because sometimes it just takes a little bit of time for these guys to get into the program. So that's certainly something to watch, and that might kind of show why we're going after a couple of transfers, some JUCO guys, some one-year graduate transfer options, because we probably do need some immediate help in some areas. But and it's just cool that some of the in-state guys just happen to play positions that we need help in, like defensive end and safety and stuff like that. So that's been a pretty hopefully lucky thing.
Mm-hmm.
Next guy that I had on the list was Damian Wilson. I actually think he was the 4th one to commit, but I skipped over somebody. I'll come back to him. But Damian Wilson from Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and he is a inside linebacker. He's kind of one of those guys where I don't really see him playing anywhere else, and he just looks exactly like a middle linebacker, and that's where I think he'll stay, and I think that's where he's going to be very good. In his junior season of high school, he was just a tackle machine. Kind of reminded me of Kinchell Brothers a little bit. Maybe not crazy athletic, but just clearly knows where to go on every play. Just a tackle machine. He had 123 tackles, 16 tackles for loss last year. So he's not huge. He's 6'1", 215, but obviously has some room to grow for sure.
And I see here North Carolina and North Carolina State both offered.
Yeah.
So snatching a guy out of his home state when the home state schools were after him.
For sure. Watching his film, one thing that stood out to me was just an incredible change of direction that I felt like he had for his size. He would just cut through lanes and make tackles for loss and stuff like that. He just looked like he was very good footwork and very agile. It looked like he had great awareness and play recognition. There was a couple like screen plays that he just snuffed out so easily on his film that that kind of thing just excites me. Just a player that clearly knows what his role is in the defense and can go make a play.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about his commitment video.
His commitment video?
Yeah. Was he the one that did a fake Rooney?
Oh, yes. The live feed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching that. I pretty much knew this guy was going to commit to Missouri, so because of just some stuff I read online, and I think it was pretty well established that Missouri needed a replacement for Nick Bolton, and went out and got this guy, and it was pretty much he was a lock.
Nick Bolton 2.0. That's Kyle said it right here on this episode.
That's not exactly what I said, but that'd be nice. So anyways, I'm watching this live Instagram video thinking like, okay, he's going to commit to Mizzou. And he kind of says his pageantries and his introductions, and he unzips the jacket, and it's just a North Carolina Tar Heel shirt. And then like nothing happened really. He actually sold it pretty well. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, this is a massive like recruiting like just blunder. And then of course he took off there was like a moment of time where I was like, please take off another shirt, or please be a shirt under this or something. And so eventually, yeah, he took off the North Carolina shirt, and the Mizzou shirt was under that. And then of course I'm thinking, is he gonna take off this shirt again? Yeah. So I'm like, do we want to be second here? Do we want to be down the road? How many shirts is he gonna take off here? So, but obviously he commits to Missouri. So that was kind of funny. It seems like that happens recently, or that's been happening recently with commitments. kind of trying to fake out. And I don't know if that was kind of a, I don't know what kind of message that sent to North Carolina, because I don't know how hard they were recruiting him. He had an offer from them. I don't know if that was just a total in your face kind of thing, or if that was just like kind of a crapping on him for not recruiting him as much as they felt like he should have, should have. I don't know, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's always easy to laugh about it whenever the player in question ends up the team you want him to end up with.
Can you imagine? Just picture this scenario for a moment. We're watching Jordan Nesbitt make his Instagram live commitment, and he does that. He takes off his jacket with a Mizzou shirt on, and then like takes it off, and it's like something else. Like, I think Mizzou Twitter would lose its collective mind.
Yeah,
like that would be awful.
Yeah, and I see the parallel you're making with this. Like you just said, we don't know North Carolina's status with him.
Right.
And if Jordan Nesbitt, this is such a huge hypothetical, but if Jordan Nesbitt went to, who knows? Let's say he went to Iowa, and Iowa wouldn't really know. The random Iowa fan wouldn't really know how much Missouri recruited Jordan Nesbitt. So yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be awful. I think Missouri Twitter's going to lose their mind no matter what happens with Jordan Nesbitt, but that would really send them over the edge.
Yeah,
understandably so.
Unless Mizzou already has like 3 or 4 like top 200 guys on board by the time
Chad
he commits.
Holmgren.
Yeah, then it would be fine.
Yeah. And then one more thing on Damian Wilson, just his incredible offer list. Offers from Michigan, Michigan State, South Carolina. Those are some really
good thing
big.
He's not from Michigan.
Yeah, I actually had that thought earlier, and I was writing this down. Like Michigan State. Pulled somebody out of Michigan. No, we didn't. He's from North Carolina, but we just historically, it seems like, at least in the times I've been following Mizzou football recruiting, we just don't win those kind of battles very often. We a lot of times we have to make our money on going against teams like Memphis or something, and it's just cool to see us, multiple recruits this week just beating out other, Power 5 SEC schools. So, I loved Damian Wilson. He might be my favorite recruit out of all these guys we're going to talk about today. I just I have a soft spot for just these big, mean-looking like linebackers who are just tackling machines, man. Like I loved Nick Bolton. Whenever he was in the recruiting class and coming into Mizzou. I definitely don't think Damian Wilson necessarily is going to be Nick Bolton level, but just that kind of player.
You had Nick Bolton on your podcast 7-on-7 team, our hypothetical 7-on-7 team that we did at the beginning of the year.
Yeah. I think it was
before his freshman season.
Yeah, it was like early on, and it was even before he really did anything at Missouri. Even that
it had to have been, because we've only done 2 of those.
Yeah, even that season that followed that draft, he didn't do a whole lot. I think he only played mainly on special teams.
Yeah.
But
man, you knew.
I guess.
Who we got next here?
Next on the list, we'll go back and talk about Kiki Chisholm, because I think I skipped over him. But he is a graduate transfer from Division II Angelo State. He is a pretty tall wide receiver. Watching his film, just really a good catch radius. He can go up and get the ball, and even when he's not like super wide open, it seems like he was just making contested catches. So Kind of reminded me almost a little bit of LaDainian Washington. And obviously, when I'm making these comparisons and parallels,
yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that Kiki Chisholm's going to come in and have a LaDainian Washington season.
He's not going to catch a pass from Bud Sasser in the end zone at Georgia to win.
Not necessarily, but just maybe a kind of a similar player, similar body type. I always thought of LaDainian Washington as just the player that was going to catch the really tough third down catch or whatever, in that 2013 season. It seemed like he always kind of got us out of some rocky moments with some clutch plays and stuff. So it would be great if Kiki Chisholm could come in and just provide some experience in the wide receiver room and make some tough catches. And that's something that we didn't have a whole lot of last year. We had a lot of drops from really everybody across the board. A lot of drops and not a lot of wide receivers going up and making a play.
And not
a lot of trust from the quarterback
exactly.
either. So
yeah,
not a lot of opportunities even when they were there.
Yeah.
So
one thing I wanted to mention was I saw a tweet from former Mizzou safety Gerald Harrison. He said, as a DB coach that has went up against him the past 2 years, this isn't a surprising move. Really good player. Speed and will go up and get it. So
that's certainly good.
Yeah.
Sounds like he might be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's certainly some concern about, him making the transition from Division II. Obviously, it's going to be a massive jump going from Division II to the SEC. So that's something to keep an eye on. I don't know that he'll start, but he certainly might. But I think that Missouri just needs some production, just some depth to come in. And
I'm fine with just moving people in and out until we figure out somebody that can make it happen.
There's just a lot of guys in that room, but nobody that's really kind of emerged as a real big playmaker.
Yeah.
So
we expected Jalen Knox to be that guy, but last year I have to say was disappointing.
Yeah, just a little inconsistent. And again, how much of that was quarterback play, I don't know. But certainly a guy who has the abilities, but maybe just kind of would kind of disappear for a while. So yeah, we could use some help with wide receivers. Got two more here. Had a whole day this week where we didn't have a commitment. So
that's disappointing.
I know, it's crazy.
Coaching staff really needs to step up their game there.
Yeah.
I want commits every day.
Me too. But after that long day where nothing happened, we had Tyler Hibbler commit, and he is a in-state player from Trinity Catholic in St. Louis. He is a 6-foot, 185-pound safety, and had some pretty good offers as well. Offers from Michigan State, Mississippi State, Nebraska. So,
boo.
Suck it. And a lot of many others. So that was kind of the highlights, though, were some of those offers. Immediately, you can tell this guy is just a hard hitter. He's kind of a heat-seeking missile. Has no problem whatsoever just destroying running backs that see a little bit of daylight. He just comes out of nowhere and destroys them. So definitely a good run stopper. I think that he might even be a candidate to play kind of a linebacker hybrid safety position. I know that Barry Odom's defenses did that a little bit at Missouri, so I don't know if that will continue, but certainly has the size and hopefully the speed to play safety at the SEC level.
I believe that marks the 6th St. Louis area recruit in the 2021 class from Missouri.
It's crazy.
Gotta love it. Producer Cameron, your thoughts on Nebraska missing out on Tyler Hibbler?
I don't have much to say about that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we thought you wouldn't because just speechless.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even know.
Producer Cameron's a Nebraska fan. For those who we haven't talked about that in a while, so we might have some new listeners that, since last season or something. So
it's not been football season for a while.
We gotta tease Producer Cameron about his Nebraska fandom. I know I vomit almost every day thinking about it, but
I think about it every day. I wake up and I have a little sign by my mirror that says Producer Cameron is a Nebraska fan.
Yeah, and just kind of sit there and shake your head a little bit and have to go to the bathroom because you're sick to your stomach.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
Same.
Man.
The last guy on the list who just committed moments ago, literally within an hour or two ago, it seems like, was B.J. Harris, and he is a running back from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And honestly, this was a little bit of a surprise to me just because I thought that Missouri might have been done at running back. Already have Taj Butts committed. He committed maybe a month or two ago. Missed out on, I don't remember his name, but a guy that went to Arkansas.
That running back, yeah.
That running back that went to Arkansas. So I thought that Missouri might just call it quits, but they very quickly signed somebody else up. B.J. Harris, again, huge offer list. Offers from 6 other SEC schools, and those include Kentucky, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. So a Tennessee guy being pulled out of Tennessee, and according to ESPN, he's the number 1 running back in Tennessee. So
most recent Mizzou running back to come out of Tennessee,
Elijah Young.
Yeah, I was thinking of Tyler Beatty, but
Tyler Beatty. Well, he was one of the recent ones for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing is we've kind of established a little bit of a pipeline. I guess maybe it's just coincidence, but running backs from Tennessee. So there'll
I'm
be
going to call it a pipeline, officially a pipeline.
Yeah, there'll be consecutive classes with running backs from Tennessee, assuming B.J. Harris sticks. But this was his junior year stats: 1,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, and an 8.1 yards per carry.
Jeez,
that is amazing.
Feed him the rock more. Come on.
Yeah, so gotta like all that stuff. I think Missouri's done at running back and linebacker now, after this week. Just really filling all of those areas of need. Rivals has them at number 19 in the country. And, obviously that's because they have 16 people committed, and I don't know that Missouri's ever had a recruiting class fill up this quickly. So that's certainly part of it, but I fully expect Missouri to remain in probably the top 30 before the end of before this class is wrapped up. So super exciting stuff, and almost feels like uncharted territory a little bit.
Yeah, I can't remember where I was reading this. I think maybe it was on a Rock M Nation article, but one of the commenters said, is Drinkwitz already the best recruiter in Mizzou history? I'm like, well, he's definitely off to a fast start.
He's on track. How long does it take to deem somebody the best,
How long would it take to deem him better than Barry Odom at recruiting?
Honestly, I think we're getting pretty close to that already. Barry Odom had some good moments, I felt like there were times where that regime was doing very well recruiting, but I had not experienced this yet.
If you want to think about some what-if situations or revisionist history, imagine if the Tiger 10 was happening right now. You got to think Drinkwitz gets 7 of those guys, right?
Honestly, all I care about is what would have happened if he were here and Ronnie Perkins were making his decision, because that's truly the only one that makes me lose sleep at night is thinking about Ronnie Perkins being an absolute stud from day one at Oklahoma. May never ever had a shot at him, Sometimes you just lose those high-profile guys to other schools.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thrilled with the recruiting success so far, and like you said, it's kind of uncharted territory. I mean, you got to think we're going to have some regression to the mean at some point. I mean, we always talk about Missouri sustaining a top 25 level recruiting class and how that's potentially what could lead them to taking that next step. And it's kind of what Gary Pinkel was doing in his last few years at Missouri, last 5 or so years, was if you take a 3-year rolling average, he was right around that mark a lot of the time. And then we saw what happened. Went to back-to-back SEC championship games. And you can argue that the SEC East was down at that time, but I don't know. I think different teams are going to be up and down every year. So
yeah,
the thing is, if you have a down year in the SEC East, none of Missouri's last 3 seasons would they have been able to take advantage of an opportunity like that. You have to have the team that maybe they should only be an 8-win team, but if their division's down a little bit, get kind of lucky with scheduling as far as who they play from the West, do you have a good enough team that can take advantage of that and turn it into a 10-win season? And with the recruiting classes like this, that's how you get to that point.
Yeah, I think we touched on this recently, but 2010 was Missouri's highest ranking in recruiting, maybe ever, or definitely at least in the era of recruiting rankings. But and we know what happened 3 years later. You know, that 2013 team was definitely one of Missouri's best football teams ever. And you know that again, maybe you could make the argument that the East was down, but I truly think that Missouri was a top 5 team in the country that year. Just so well balanced. Their whole team was so strong, and that's what happens whenever you have good classes. And you're gonna miss on individual players sometimes. There's gonna be highly ranked players that don't end up panning out, and there's gonna be low ranked players that end up being really good. You know, they miss on recruiting rankings, but I think what's really important is the class as a whole, because more than often they're going to hit on these guys most of the time. So, you know, when you've got a whole entire class of guys who are highly ranked, that's whenever it's exciting.
I completely agree. Yeah. I just hope it continues. I mean, I don't know what I'll be thinking if things just regress to the mean very quickly. And I hope we don't have to deal with that. I hope even with some regression, we're still sitting around the 30 ranking, something like that. Top 10 in the SEC. I'd be totally fine with that. Mm-hmm. First year on the job for this new staff.
Yeah, it's really kind of blown past all expectations.
Which player was it? It may have been the running back that you just mentioned. Was he the one that I saw Arkansas was recruiting him as well? And if you go to his profile, it actually shows... no, it must have been a defensive player, potentially. It showed that Barry Odom was the lead recruiter for him. And then it showed Missouri's coach as the lead recruiter. I don't know if you saw that, but I don't know. It's just such a weird thing to see, just the screenshot.
That they're like recruiting against each other now, or whatever.
And then the fact that the player picked Missouri is just kind of like, oh.
I think I saw that.
That's interesting.
I don't know who the player was. But yeah, it's weird. It's like the apprentice has become the master. What did I just say?
The apprentice has become the master.
Good job.
You got anything else about this recruiting class?
I feel like I don't know what else to say about this. You know, it's just all the positive things. We've have all these highly ranked players. We have highly ranked players from St. Louis. That's just, again, you know, we've talked about that in the past. That's something that doesn't really happen. Just so many barriers that Coach Drinkwitz is just smashing through right now. And especially with all the uncertainty with actual football being played potentially, like it's just so, I mean, this is like the lone sports news that is just like the bright spot, you know, is just how Missouri football looks to be headed right now.
Kyle, I don't know if you're okay with me changing the subject, but I just remembered that I haven't told you. In a moment of weakness, I purchased NCAA Football 2006, a PlayStation 2 game. That was the first NCAA football game I ever played. Just pure nostalgia. It was like $6 shipped on Amazon.
Did it work?
It worked. Although the control scheme for playing offense is quite different. But the nostalgia that kicked in when I booted that game up is unmatched. I remembered the songs that were playing. And
was it just like the fight songs of all the teams?
No. It had a licensed soundtrack.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There was one other thing I was going to say about that. Okay, so Brad Smith is the starting quarterback for Missouri on that. And the game, when you first boot it up, if you don't have anything saved to your console, it thinks it's the first time you've ever played it. It takes you right into your race for the Heisman character creation. And then you go right into doing a little drill for your position. And then you get 3 scholarship offers. So I think I'm going to redo this anyway. The first time I played it, I just was kind of playing around a little bit. I made a quarterback and dominated the drill. Got offers from number 1 USC, number 6 Texas, and number 3 Iowa. It kind of
Congratulations.
Threw me off that Iowa was number 3 in the country. But I picked Missouri, and it just automatically put me as the starter above Brad Smith. Brad Smith, 95 overall, my player, 82 overall freshman. And she's like, oh, you're taking the starting job from Brad Smith.
There you go.
So that was kind of fun. I remembered the first time I played it and played the Heisman mode, I was a defensive end at USC and won the Heisman all 4 seasons and broke like every sack record, every record possible.
As a defensive end, is that what you just said?
Yes.
You won the Heisman 4 years. Wow.
4 years in a row.
That
had never been done.
Is really something.
Never will be done again, especially by a defensive player.
I think whenever you mention like nostalgia from video games, like college sports, I had like college basketball 2006, maybe might have been 2006, and I can't even remember who's on the cover. I think it's some UConn player, which seems weird.
Maybe Emeka Okafor?
Yeah, it was him. It was weird. It seems weird that you can put a real life player on a front of a video game and they're obviously not being compensated whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I think they are because it's always after they've graduated.
Oh, okay.
Or after they've left the university.
Gotcha.
And the university can make money off the video game, just not the player.
But even as a kid, I would like sometimes just simulate. I would do like dynasty mode and I would just simulate like 20 years of college basketball seasons, just like doing the recruiting and stuff and trying to, and sometimes I'd make Missouri really good and then I'd go coach at Missouri State or something and get them really good or whatever. I would just hop around. I don't know. But I'm sure if I turn that on my PS2 right now, I'm sure it would be very nostalgic.
Yeah. Somebody's vacuuming. Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you. Got a new video game.
Nice.
I can't get enough of the... Oh, I wanted to mention that a YouTube commenter suggested that I, download the updated rosters or user-generated rosters with names and stuff for NCAA Football 14. And, I need to do that. My PS3 is just not hooked up to the internet right now.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I never thought of that. I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah. So... Kyle, I think that's all I got for everybody.
That's all I got for everybody.
We could talk about video games for a long time, but I don't think
that's
why people are here.
We can talk about a lot of stuff. So tell us what you want to talk about. Well, tell us what you want us to talk about, and we'll
there you go.
We'll do it. So you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitter and Instagram at Missouri Sports Pod, and you can email us at
Elon Musk us
at Missouri Sports Podcast pod at gmail.com.
Missouri Sports Pod.
We don't get a whole lot of emails, so it's not that important, honestly, guys.
We get a lot of emails from Podbean.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. We will see you next week.